Into the Nexus is a production of amove.tv. Bookmark Amove TV for other great video games and esports podcasts. Into the Nexus is sponsored by listeners like you via patreon.com/ITN. Greetings and welcome back, everyone, to Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm, coming to you. My mouth is eluding me. Coming to you one day early and from twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson, because you're on the launcher right now, Kyle.
I am, and also you're off to vacation, so it makes things complicated easier. Get out of here, man. I'm so excited for you.
Well, I can't get out of here just yet, dude. There's still Heroes of the Storm to be discussed.
That's true.
There's some stuff going on. I'm gonna miss this game while I'm gone. Not as much as
Heroes never sleeps.
No, it doesn't. And even when it does, like it's pretty quiet this week, right? This is the quietest week in Heroes of the Storm I think we have had all year.
We're finally gonna get back to some strategy. We've had an email sitting in the box that I wanted to address for a long time about rotation, so we're gonna get to that later on. A big topic, and certainly something that gets thrown around as like, you messed up the nebula statement here.
Yeah, isn't that fun? Don't you love getting that, Kyle?
Love it when your spec is wrong. What about it?
Yeah, well, more on that later. But what's going on with you right now in the game, Kyle? I see you've got some top of the show notes.
I do. I made a discovery this week, and it took some hard work, because I've been loving Varian, particularly Taunt Varian. If the team was missing Burst, the game's a little rough in the first place. Maybe I'll squeeze in that Colossal Smash, but currently I'm dead even on my win rate in Varian. Not going up, not going down. But I got to get off him. I got to move on. And I found out yesterday via some very angry people, like overwhelmingly angry people, toxic people, you would even say, that this character tilts really hard. And I found this out not only by getting whispers after the fact, but because there's such a huge difference between my games. When we're winning, Varian was the best pick ever. Everybody loves him. How could this be so OP? And when we're losing, it's all Varian's fault. So I found this out by the person who whispered me, searching their name on Reddit, finding their account in Heroes of the Storm, and finding out that they were part of a thread where they were doing the Varian on their team, God, Lord of the Alliance, Varian on my team, melting in ashes kind of joke threads. And so he has become one of these Nova kind of characters in people's minds. And while I've been loving him, it is too emotionally taxing to jump from game to game where people love you and people hate you.
So that was a lot of research. That doesn't seem like you, Kyle. This is like, it sounds like this guy got to you.
He did. He got, and it was so strange because it was one of those where we set up a plan in the draft. Wasn't talking. I'll fill placer guy. We start the game, not following the plan we all set up. Greymane's lost. He wanted the solo lane. Now Nazebo's in his solo lane instead of doing the double soak thing we all planned about. Starts tilting on the team, calling everybody names. Had a unique one, too, I haven't heard before. Not sure I want to say it out loud, but it was a unique way to dodge the censorship.
Oh.
So started coming up with these, fruitful names for everybody. And it was just so shocking that I had to dig a little deeper because, I don't engage, and it's tough. In that particular game, I'm Taunt Varian, run on in, Taunt the Deckard, no follow-up. Okay, all right. Boo! Taunt the Falstad, no follow-up. Oh, how interesting. Well, I'm going to do my thing. It's a Triglav game. We're losing on Volskaya. I'm going to grab up my favorite stack. I'm going to get myself, that Warbringer. That's going to give me all that charge cooldown, going to give me that Juggernaut where I do 4% max health into heroes, which a vehicle counts as. So I get it. Like about halfway through the game, we're losing, and suddenly your variant starts going over and over into the robot. because it's dealing percent-based damage into that vehicle. So I'm killing the thing. And then I'm taunting the Muradin to try to help Nazebo live. You can see how if you're a tilting mindset in the first place, that seeing Varian continually use his charge on the robot and then using his taunt to try to peel the Muradin off your Nazebo, how this might make people a little upset. So I think my play style just doesn't mesh with the particular placing crowd.
Gotcha. So the expectations have changed with the new season, it sounds like.
Well, and there's an expectation that taunt is for blow up. And often what I teach is that this is a fluid game. I'm not going to keep taunting the Deckard and Falstad when there's no follow-up. I need to find other ways to make this game work. In particular, helping Nazebo stack up and making sure he's safe to do so. But that involves taunting the tanks.
You're a saint, dude, because, I mean, the easy answer is, what the hell was the Gray Man doing? You have a Gray Man, why was there no follow-up?
He didn't trust the Alex at that point, so he didn't want to go in. I mean, it's that weird scenario, too, where people who visit Hero League for placements don't know how much you lose when you're doing this kind of thing and how much of the puzzle that is. And we can take discoveries from it. I mean, this is 6 games of Varian, 3-3 right now. And that's how many it takes to kind of be like, okay, there's always going to be just a bad game. And you can't go just throwing away something you love because you had a tough day.
Yeah. Well, good on you, sir. That would have driven me mad. I mean, it does sound like it drove you a bit mad, but you made lemonade.
Yeah. I do feel, even though it's all in silence, I didn't, I did reports for this, but I didn't go on some vengeance spree. I didn't comment on his Reddit posts, but it gave me a lot of pause because this was someone who broadcast themselves as a very sane person, even a helpful person on Reddit, that they were so knowledgeable about different characters that they were willing to share their knowledge. If only everyone was as good as them. And when I saw that, I definitely went, they're just visiting. We'll be back to normal in 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Gotcha. Just let the ship right itself.
Yeah.
Cool. So,
but I am shopping again, which is fun. Yeah. I like shopping.
I was about to say, yeah, you've brought up Heroes Trader. You've put in your filter parameters, and what are you saving? What are you looking at? What are you gonna go put a down payment on and finance?
I mean, I'm basically proposing to Urel unless she gets a mega nerf. Like she's just the bee's knees. I'm just loving her immensely, particularly with all the Raynors and the Jaina's running around. She does good against Sonya in lane. She beats Dahaka in lane. Blaze is just kind of passive right now. I loved his play style, but you got to get people in the bunker. You don't really win that solo lane. You more just kind of hold it out and survive. But with Sonya kind of getting down your tower health, you're not really building that advantage. I know when I look at Urel, jump people, stuns, area effects, Muradin's sitting there being like, hey, love me. And I'm like, I don't wanna. But it's such a nice, you got that whole kind of Urel, Muradin. I love Anubarak, but he's kind of particular in his spell shielding. And plus, he's kind of like ETC. If Anubarak gets silenced, taunted, stunned, you're just so dead, and it just feels bad.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. Absolutely with you there. I have pretty flippy floppy 50-50 experiences with Urel. I don't know the Urel I'm about to be graced with. Actually, apparently feels a lot like the opinion of your unnamed teammate in regards to Varian. That's kind of how I feel about Urel right now, but not your Urel. I'm always happy to have you on the Space Goat.
Well, and you can read into it a little bit with how the Urel uses her damage, because all the damage is on Avenging Wrath, the jump. And if she's jumping on the lane from the beginning, you know that this Urel is aware of where her lane clear is. If she is charging up her hammer and being like, here comes everything, pillows, it just read into that and know that she's probably going to go something a bit more like Sacred Ground. I've heard it called the Happy Circle, which I enjoy.
That's a helpful little tip.
And it's going to be a bit more passive play. I mean, I love the Defender, the Ardent Defender where you're going to heal, not because I expect people to target me in Diamond and above, but I can jump a fort wall and then the fort will target me, and that'll heal me up.
Well, what about when you're not doing tanks, man? What else are you playing? What are you looking at?
Following my own advice, like that's where I'm kind of hitting a bit of a wall right now because I know I'm not doing that. I tell lots of people, find that through line. You know, if you show an earlier relic gets banned, don't just go diving straight on the Kael'thas. That's what I'm doing. I'm diving straight on the Kael'thas because he's got a stun on him. He punishes these heavy front lines that we're seeing on things like Alterac. Lots of thralls there, lots of team fighty, pile-ons. Other than that, it's back to Tychus, who I'm enjoying immensely, but can't really stand still right now. But you got Odin, you got your spray and pray, so it's a good way to stay mobile as long as somebody's doing a bit more burst damage. If you can stand still, you got that bigger they are, and you can help bruise people up for your Malthaels and Lunaris to come and sweep in.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, I'm in a bit of a flux as far as my heroes right now. The only thing that's really stuck is Kerrigan. She's doing pretty well in drafts right now. She's always available.
Yeah, in fact, we got an email that I read this week, and we'll address it further in another show because it was a pretty big topic, but he was asking why Kerrigan is looking so good on Alterac. And it's because of that team fight I just kind of talked about. Like, managing your ult there, and that's something that over time from playing this game since the beta, you do very well on your Kerrigan. It's kind of passive play on the in-between.
That's interesting because, on Hotslogs, it's the lowest win rate map for her.
Really?
Yeah. Just underneath Battlefield of Eternity and Cursed Hollow are her three lowest.
I didn't look up particular. That was the anecdote we were delivered. So, but it makes sense alongside like the Thralls. Also, Kel'Thuzad, crazy win rate right now on Alterac Valley.
I've been seeing K2 all over the place.
I'm still not a fan, but I love seeing him. Like, I just like that he's in the game and that he's a visual presence. I don't want to stack him.
Yeah, I love seeing him on the opposing team because it means kills for me.
Oh. So these aren't good experience. Well, they're good experiences for you, but they're not fruitful.
I haven't been getting him on my team. I keep seeing him. I keep going up against Kel'Thuzad on Braxis of all places, and as soon as I see a single one of his abilities miss, bring it all the way back to the Dunk Train advice I got, which was, did Kel'Thuzad use any ability? Cool, you can engage now.
Yeah, that's a shame. But Braxis, that doesn't sound like much fun.
Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from. I mean,
well,
the pad, like, if you're good with chains, the pad, like, guarantees you're going to land a chain because of the way that it chokes everybody together. But I just dance, man. I'm just a tap dancing Kerrigan until I see a chain go out. And then I'm like, all right, and I go.
I guess you could stack fast, but it's kind of like throwing Asmodee in the 4-man lane there. You're just going to do small damage during the most important part of Braxis.
Yeah.
And then you come online when they have 3 levels on you.
Yeah, I don't know. And it could wild greatly between leagues, so I'm not too sure. I'm still playing quite a bit of unranked. Because I knew I'm going on vacation. I've got all this crunch time. I'm not in the headspace for Hero League right now.
Probably the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a savage place.
Not ready. I'm not ready. So, but I wanted to talk about the silence or the quietness in Heroes of the Storm right now. Do we think a new hero is on the horizon?
That seems right. I mean, we've definitely seen in the past with Overwatch that Blizzard likes to go a little quiet when big things are happening in their other games. So it could just be Battle for Azeroth ramping up. Though, schedule-wise, I mean, we are due a hero before that releases on the 14th.
Yeah. I'm very lost as to what I think it is, what I think we need right now.
The thing we've seen, the leaks that haven't come to pass, in particular, the image we saw at BlizzCon 2 years ago where they sort of lined up and heroes to come and had like Kel'Thuzad on there, and I think it was Stukov back then even. A Xel'Naga has been on the list for a really long time.
Got you. Yeah, I don't know.
And
I'd like to see another support. I mean, it feels like we just got Deckard, so I don't think we need one so soon, but I don't know. I'd like to see another more interesting support hero.
I think they might be a little on the drawing board with some of their supports right now. I think they're trying to discover. I don't think they just want to nerf Deckard and Malfurion, but they both have the engage ults. And when you play on a team, particularly with a Deckard who knows what he's doing, mainly I say that just because I don't know what I'm doing yet. I'm still figuring it out. He can engage for the team, saving all those abilities for the rest of the team, meaning they follow up with those abilities in tow, and you get the delete really well. And it makes me wonder, like, what would you do to the other supports to give them that ability? Because Uther's got appeal for his backline. There's Genji's, there's Sonya's. He's a busy guy when he gets picked up, and usually it's in a situation where he's not having a massive heal, so it's a smart pick in that degree. But those are sort of reined in as our mega ults on single characters, like Malthael and Genji have been reined in as well.
Do you want to just jump into news and skip ahead to the support thread that was on the forum while we're in this discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, so pretend we played a news bumper. Just keep the flow going. Matt V responded to some comments on the forum, basically saying that supports are in a sad state and that Malfurion and Deckard are the only supports that are seeing play and are interesting because of their playmaking potential that you kind of talked about, Kyle, and then kind of relegating all of the supports to a heal bot. I'm, of course, with you, Kyle. I'm sitting there being like, hey, what about Uther? You watch your mouth. But, and anyway, Matt V had a really long post. You should go and read the whole thing, but basically talking about how it was more or less a history lesson than anything else, saying that, oh, hey, did you forget about double support? Because y'all were pretty adamant about killing that back when that was the way to play the game, and we did that, and now here we are.
And he not misspoke, because those are the words that Blizzard has given us, but as a community we've defined support and healer as sort of two different things, and support can even be like Abathurs and Medivhs and whatnot. What he's talking about here is double healer had to go in their minds. They didn't want, for instance, you got your Lucio, but Lucio's weak to this certain type of thing. Let's say, Uther Lucio. That's something that would actually be run. And it was great because I'd get a speed boosted in as Uther. I could use my spells very offensively. I could work as an off tank. And I had the burst healing, but I couldn't deal with a bunch of AoE damage. And Lucio could. So in this time of double support, as Blizzard defines it, a double healer, as we as a community define it, we were just taking two supports because they had enough damage, meaning enough lane clear, to solo a lane for a little bit. I was soloing Versonia and doing great back then.
Yeah.
That was an issue to them. We just filled out the two. They tried to put everybody in a nice little cubby, and you'd be like, well, AoE damage, that's Lucio's territory. We need an escape, and we want a little bit of slow. Well, Alex Straza's good there. We as a community said, oh, you've got holes in your supports. We'll fill them out with a second one.
Yeah, exactly. But then the support Apocalypse came in, and that's no longer the case. We don't play the game that way. So and Matt V, like, his comments are pretty much that, hey, we're still working on it. It didn't really have anything in concrete, but it's something I personally haven't been really thinking of, because in at least my games at home, I still see a good amount of support diversity. Mostly because, and I don't know, I don't see it as a bad thing. I don't find supports outside of Malfurion and Deckard to be that boring. I find Stukov wildly interesting. He's just a little underpowered for my taste right now. I think he needs to get a little bit of life breathed back into him. Uther is wildly interesting support for me to play. Really, the only support that I find just dull as could be is Morales.
Sure, and that's fair, I think. And it's certainly, she has been highlighted in the past as the most healed body, and she's been, changed around quite a bit. She has grenade talents now that help her out to be a bit more active. You can take auto attack talents to get your mana back up and stuff. We've seen more medevacs than stim drones recently, since we've kind of cut down on our, super carries. But Stukov's a really interesting example because when you look at the tilt kind of situation, the personality of the league, if you don't do Virulent Reaction, which turns you into one of these engaged supports like Malfurion or Deckard, you have done your team a at least moral disservice, if not an actual gameplay disservice.
Yeah, which I think is unfair. I mean, he has an AoE silence as a base level ability. That in and of itself is a playmaking ability.
Right, when we look at Growing Infestation, that cooldown's up to 15 seconds now. So it's very easy for lower league players to mismanage that. And for me too, like that's why I don't play. I love Stukov. I thought he was a lot of fun when I enjoyed him. I don't do that anymore because managing that cooldown is something I'm not ready for. And it's tough to identify when the best time to do that Growing Infestation would be.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. I'm not going to argue that Deckard and Malfurion aren't better at playmaking, but that I don't know. Am I wrong? Like, am I looking at this? Because I look at this, and I'm, especially with the bans now, and I'm like, okay, yeah, if Malfurion or Deckard get removed via bans, it's really interesting. It's interesting to have to make, quote unquote, suboptimal, for lack of a better word, supports work. They get to be ready, and I don't know. I don't see it as a bad thing.
That's true. And you still have early pick supports, and I see them in my league, and they're Brightwings and they're Rhaegars, and they just love their hero and they want to grab it up. It perhaps I guess do we need something that would identify a support player ahead of time? Should you queue as support? Would that give more diversity? Should we ban out supports, like you're saying, to increase that? Like we're all sitting here getting rid of things we're frustrated about, but nobody wants to play support, and the chances of someone being a skilled Deckard or Malfurion are much lower than a skilled something like Chromie even, or Genji.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the challenge of a class-based system, right? And on the flip side, I can like the most I agree with the comments in this forum thread are if I read it in the mindset of a support main. I can see how it would get boring because supports a lot of times don't get a ban. So you end up probably just playing game after game of Malfurion or Deckard. And that gets dull after a while.
Yeah, particularly Malfurion is it's very overwhelming to be down levels and still trying to do your business on Malfurion because it is heals over time. Deckard, it's about aiming. He's basically aiming engage Lily, as we've talked about in the past. And that's you still get to play because of that huge range. Malfurion from ahead is fantastic and easy, even, and deserves that tag.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I mean, I can't. I'm not going to argue with any comments saying that a lot of the other supports kind of just look old and dusty compared to the reworked Malfurion and on our latest support, Deckard. I agree with that. I love Deckard a lot. He feels so good to play and so much fun and so active as a support. But I don't know. I have a lot of personal biases. If I want to play Deckard and he gets banned out, I'm pretty stoked to play Lily.
Right. Well, and some of these are just straight up playstyle changes. Like when you see a Kharazim solo support on your team, you need to change up the way you're just standing in the poop and make sure you're not taking damage that Kharazim can't heal off. Don't be bullheaded like we do alongside something like a Morales. And that's difficult, particularly when people are chaining games, and it may be more difficult during these placement time periods. I also wonder if Blizzard maybe push back against more bans for an extended period of time because now they don't have any data on Garrosh, Chromie, Genji. How do they balance them when they're not getting to play? And when they do get played, it's some Chromie main who I got to see yesterday who wrecked absolute face.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, where do you land? What do you think needs to be done with supports? Do you think that we just need to look at some of the older supports and kind of dust them off a little bit? Oh, by the way, we haven't even mentioned Ariel. Ariel's in a decent spot right now.
Yeah, she is. And she provides, a decent stun, and I love her activity. Her hope generation is in a good place. But those are reactionary. The whip is reactionary, and it is going to push them away from you. Maybe something in that case like Raynor's update, where his push pushes less the further they are away from you, so that when you're trying to pop them for damage, you didn't get the kill, they're not infinitely out and free and thanks for the save kind of moments. So maybe if they're in your face, you get a big old whip, and if they're far away, you can use that for a little bit of engage time. Quality of life treatments like that.
I feel like
we also haven't. Go for it.
I was going to say that might make it even harder to get stuns, though. So that's something they can consider.
Do I have to stun as much as I do in those positions when I'm not stacking, though? The whole reason why I do range is not because I'm expecting us to catch up with that thing I stunned. It's because I want stacks for sweet damage equals my hope, which means I rely less on my teammates.
Okay. But what about other, again, I guess reiterating my question is, do you think we just need to give some love to some of the more straightforward supports?
I mean, when we look at win rates of just the healers, we're looking at Rhaegar on top at 52% right now across all leagues, Hero League, and Uther at the bottom at 47%. That's not something we all need to tragically, beg Blizzard for an update. It's weird, though, that we are sitting in a passive armorless world, and we haven't changed our supports up, because that's what armor was there to do, was to allow more supports to shine so that we didn't have to over-heal everybody.
Yeah. So the more we're having the discussion, the more it seems like it's a balancing act of proactive versus reactive.
Yeah.
And that what we want, or at least what we've been kind of trained to want, is proactive support engage.
And you're going to see very different things in different leagues. Like, Morales still gets a lot of bans when you're looking at silver and bronze. That's because it's such an abundance of healing and a much more passive reactionary play style that allows people to make educated decisions. Putting together the thought process to be proactive is way more complicated. And keeping that aggression going, not looping around after you get the kill, being like, woo, party time, everybody, let's run in circles, get a camp. Like pushing forward is an active process and takes game knowledge. So it's definitely a balancing act. Something too brought up in this thread that I thought was very interesting is a lot of people were saying, whoa, Blizzard, so you hate double support healer. Why don't you hate double tank? Why is this a thing? And it's important to say again, that's their words. They are using warrior, double warrior. Our wording is tank and bruiser. And Blizzard is absolutely fine with tank bruiser. That's a double warrior comp, yes. We even say double tank to just throw it out there real quick. But we're talking about tank bruiser. What Blizzard doesn't want is a world where people are running ETC and Blaze together when they're doing double tank, even though Blaze is back in secondary engage and kind of bruiser and soloing. They don't want ETC just rocking it along stitches. That's not the world they want to build, and we're not in that world, so nothing needs to be changed there.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a tank and a bruiser.
It just sounds like the most frustrating thing on earth, honestly, and I don't want to witness that world.
What, double tank or tank and a bruiser?
Let's say ETC somehow through balance updates or just neglect got a whole bunch of damage on his kit, and then he was running alongside people like Stitches or Johanna. Just getting sucked in, and then ETC just across everybody. It's massive damage. And everyone's like, you gotta dodge the power slide, it's deadly. Not in the assassins kill you way, but an ETC is killing everybody way.
Yeah, well, we're not there, and I think it's fine. Again, the double warrior that we currently see, I rather enjoy. Yeah, if we start double stacking, beefy tank heroes, okay, maybe there's an issue.
And it's important to note too, with our Supportocalypse update, as sad as it was for people who really, really dug it like myself, there was zero draft diversity on maps. We just picked the same comps over and over again, and I haven't seen Sylvanas this whole season actually, but there was no Sylvanas in leagues. It was just there was no room for her because Vala could do that job. Greymane could do that job with proper support.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I don't really know. I guess I would always rather see underutilized heroes improved than I would overutilized heroes nerfed. I just find it more interesting. Like what we saw recently happen with Aria, what we saw right now, what we're experiencing with Raynor. I mean, you and I, for what seems like years, were saying, "Hey, when's Raynor getting some love?" And he finally has, and it's incredible.
He's our top win rate hero right now.
Yeah. So that's personally where I lean on the subject of supports. Like, keep Malfurion and Deckard as they are. It's working. I think we all find it interesting to play the game that way. Let's give more incentive to try other supports. And I don't want all supports to have proactive engage. I think they need to find a way, and I have no idea how you do this, but to promote a reactive playstyle.
Right. Like an example of this would be something like Alexstrasza. So right now, Flame Buffet, you fire a fireball, boo, and it deals baby damage. You hit a second fireball, you get a slow on top of that, and it refunds the mana cost. So she's got a little bit of drain baked in. It's pretty smartly woven there. You know, if you don't hit your Flame Buffets over and over again, you're going to run out of mana. That's how you're skilled Alexstrasza over a less skilled Alexstrasza. But we got to hit that second one. And as soon as I'm even slightly on fire, I'm going to start wiggling like a champ, because I know you want to Flame Buffet me and get that slow. And that slow, you know, with level 4 talent goes to 60%. So if we would apply this to Alexstrasza, would we just bake that in, take away the initial hit, and say every time Alexstrasza hits anybody with a Flame Buffet, 60% slow on that person?
That'd be nice.
Not a bad idea, maybe.
Think about baking in a lower powered version of the level 16 root on Stukov.
That's an interesting idea. I mean, I don't want to see that text as a new player.
Well, is it that bad? I mean, because it's one of those things. Like, you remember when Kael'thas, the first KT, came out, and we were looking at how his trait modifies all of his other basic abilities, and we're like, oh man, that's a lot to take in. And then we realized one of the most straightforward heroes to play. Yeah. That's how I kind of think about Stukov. Like, if you add that text, like, if you pop a pustule, yada, 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 like, it's a little bit to take in at first, but if you're training that type of play style out the gate once the game starts, I don't think it's that bad, because eventually it just becomes muscle memory.
That's true. And you know, something we certainly learned at StarCraft is don't underestimate your players' intelligence. You know, let them be the ones to decide if something's too much. Give them the tools to have fun. And, you know, if the text was sitting on weighted pustule, yeah, that's 2 paragraphs long, but that'd be a nice update.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that. I don't think the Heroes team has really had a history of being guilty of wanting to simplify just for the sake of simple. That's Team 5's territory. That's all Hearthstone. Heroes of the Storm, and it's one of the things I love about them. They just seem to do what's right without kind of sticking to weird rules that they've, for some reason, set in place for themselves. Yeah.
And I've also heard from a lot of Tyrande players this week who just want to play Tyrande. And these are people who, you know, didn't do placements yet. They're looking at their placements going, Tyrande is my favorite hero. Why can't I do this? And, you know, the real answer is because you're a great 1v1er. And that's why you love her so much in Quick Match. But when you get into Hero League where people are stacking and rotating, your power just kind of ekes away. And plus, I've seen you guys, you only heal yourselves. And I don't blame you, because you're getting movement speed and you can tank that spell damage or whatever you decide to go, but you're not very sherry. Well, that's a good Tyrande role play, I guess I should say.
I'm in a very similar boat. But you also have the knowledge to realize those niche cases where a Tyrande would be perfect.
Yeah.
Just don't expect it to happen every single time. I don't expect any hero I like to be the right choice every game.
It's nice when it is, though. As someone, you know, pumping Yrel as hard as I can at the moment, it's nice to just hover something, know you're gonna love it.
Clearly, there was a better way to word that, but okay, sure.
There was, but move on.
Let's circle back around to the Raynor discussion that we started to tap into because we were planning on doing a Raynor Azmo check-in. Raynor's just atop the win rate pile. Imagine him in a Conan the Barbarian style stance sitting in a throne right now.
He's doing all right. Though Anduin's in that pose now. It looks good.
Anduin?
Yeah. You got a graphic update in yesterday's patch, and he's looking all cool, sitting in his chair with his sword, ruining the carpet. You gotta say, stabbed into that carpet, that nice throne room carpet.
I'm not logging into my Alliance tunes until after Teldrassil's burning, but so I haven't seen that model update. But he's a dork. Anduin's a dork, and he's not my king.
Fair enough.
The ghost of Varian is more of a king to me than Anduin.
But he's sitting there, foot on a Zergling skull, Hydralisk skull, I think is more Raynor style.
Yes. So he's doing well. He's doing very well. I'm happy with it. Do you think he needs a nerf? I think it might need to be reined in a little bit, but I don't want to see him just fall off the face of the, Nexus.
No, and he's got plenty of weaknesses. They're just particular. And maybe they require a tank to pull them off and to get that far into him. I mean, we're also seeing a lot of hammer right now. So clearly pushback and long range is doing some serious work.
I have, in Quick Match, again, only place I can play a Raynor right now, been getting absolutely destroyed by Zero Tools on Raynor. It feels really old school, and I feel like I shouldn't be surprised because it kind of makes sense. Like, a lot of times, just the way Raynor is played, you leave yourself open to that type of sneak attack.
I know on Raynor I'm not activating my heal enough because I'm used to it being passive, and that's my own fault for loving previous Raynor too much.
I feel like I'm activating it too much because I feel like I just need to get that cooldown rolling.
I think that's the right way to do it. You do reduce your own cooldown, so using it to top yourself off rather than waiting to that halfway point and sitting on it too long, babying it, is probably not the right idea. There has been an increase in Zeratul, though, recently.
Yeah, I think it's a natural course of things. I think if Raynor's going to see a lot of play, I think jumping on top of him with a high damage sticky hero is the answer.
Well, and that's the same idea as basically the tank, right? You can recover from that pushback on Zeratul because you have a range way to engage and teleport back in without using your blink in the first place. And if you get disconnected, you still have that blink. Maybe you're sitting on a second blink because of your heroic pick.
Yep. And dear God, if they get a level lead, it feels like you can't get away from the Zeratul.
Yeah. It's cool to watch him go, though. I don't mind. Though I did have a Grandmaster's Zeratul in one of my placement games who definitely was on the voice comms, and that team went from like farting around biz to suddenly God mode. We can assume he was shot calling.
I believe it. What's going on with Azmo?
Dead even. So we're not sure yet. I think
I always count that as a win after a rework because people that have never played the hero before ever are playing him.
He's in a different spot. For me, I really only succeed in stacking on Azmo when I'm doing hero hits, which is rather map dependent and really helpful in like a 4-man lane. Great in like Haunted Mines, but that's not anything you want to write home about since that's not in any sort of serious rotation at the moment.
Yeah, you just need to look at the games played numbers, dude. He's above Rhaegar, he's above Thrall, he's above Gul'dan, he's above Phoenix in games played.
Oh wow, you're right.
Azmo is seeing a lot of inclusion in games. For crying out loud, he's past the 10,000 mark on games banned.
Bizarre.
Yeah. So that's what we're seeing high Azmo rotation. So I think I'm of the belief, I have no way of actually knowing this, but I'm of the belief that when a hero who is not played by the vast majority of the player base suddenly sees an uptick in play, it's a lot of folks learning. And what do we do when we learn? We lose.
Yeah.
Why do we fall, Kyle?
What's the point of all those push-ups?
Exactly. exactly. So, because I have, oh my God, man, some of the Asmodans I have seen that know what they're doing. It's horrifying and beautiful at the same time.
I don't think the delay is really all that tragic, actually. There's plenty of time to actually hit. There is still the lane prep if you go other builds. And actually, we did get another email about this, and worth stating. If you are doing an auto attack build or you are doing a stacking on minions build that doesn't involve hitting heroes, it's worth it to prep the lane. And that basically means go into that back line, because the front line engage, you got your little minions. Their little minions come together, little warriors with their shields. They start hitting each other. They're fine. They're going to take care of each other and get themselves to half. But the wizard and the archer, 2 attacks each. And I think that's boring. But that's how you do it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 into the wizard. And then you slam. And then you got the stacks. And you do that over and over and over again. Until you get to 10, and then you can augment it to just slam the whole lane at that point, and things get really easy for you.
Yep. Cassie is continuing the climb. She's doing real great in Alterac Pass. Zagara has recovered. She's very high in the win rates right now. I blame Braxis and Sky Temple being in the rotation.
I have not adapted to the new, very slow Nidus.
Oh?
I want more Niduses, and they don't flow like they used to.
No, you just kind of need to be aware of that.
Yeah, I was using Niduses to peel for myself as I run away, and I was being gluttonous, I think.
Yeah, at the end of the day, for me, I just am happy to have the mana regen. To me, I think that's enough. If you think ahead, you use your cooldowns wisely, you can actually travel the map with your Nidus as a massive bonus. But if you can just not Hearth because you're keeping yourself topped off with your Nidus, that to me is enough to tip it over the edge and make it what you still want to pick.
Well, and interesting too that she's bouncing back, even though we haven't received Warhead Junction or any of those sort of maps in the rotation yet. Yeah.
I think Zagara's in a great place. I really like where she's at right now.
She's definitely top of the list, along with things like Lunar, in that overwhelm your enemies and climb through platinum.
Yep. Well, shall we move on to strategy, Kyle?
Let's do that. We got a big one.
Choose a talent.
Choose a talent.
Talent? That seems generous.
Impressive work, hero. I think you're ready for more.
So Stim Sheep wrote into itncast@gmail.com. That's the inbox where you can send your emails into the show, and asked, do you think that ITM will ever do a segment on how to play or do rotations on certain maps? A lot of the time I hear in coaching sessions that the team is rotating incorrectly, or we should be doing X camp at Y time. I was wondering if ITM would ever consider taking some time to go over some of the more common strategies on this, or if this might be a spin-off video separate from the show. Well, the answer is yes. We're going to talk about it right now. So, Kyle, you put a lot of work in this, dude. I got in the notes today, and I'm like, whoa, look at Kyle with the just knowledge bomb.
There is also a fabulous article just about when to take Merc camps right now on the HGC website that is worth looking at. It also talks about, when you should take a boss, and says you should never solo a boss because it takes too long and everybody's going to notice your absence. Lots of cool tips coming out, and they've continued their learning series again over on HGC. So check that out, esports.heroesofthestorm.com.
I would also like to preface everything we're about to say with the little disclaimer that is, as always, the goal of the talk we were about to have is to give you some solid general strategies. Always adapt to the situation that you're in. Keep an eye on the minimap. Keep an eye on level disparities, deaths, and timers for large abilities. All of that you should factor in. This is just a general discussion. So let's kick it off with the most general of which is just general rotations. Let's not even get really map specific here.
Right. So when you hear rotation, the rotation was bad. What are people trying to say to you? Well, let's first discuss what the 4-stack is, perhaps, because that's the most general one you're going to see. This is when you're on a map and 2 lanes are close enough together that a team can soak it efficiently. Waves spawn every 30 seconds. If you have enough lane clear on your team, an old school way of doing this was Johanna Zool. You'd suck them all in, Zool would clean it up, you're out, 3 seconds. It takes you about 9 seconds to mount up, ride to that next lane, and 3 seconds to clear again. You can do this, with Gul'dan basically by himself as long as he's got a guard. We do this often on Tomb of the Spider Queen with Stitches, Gul'dan, Kael'thas, someone like that, Johanna together. It's a great way to get it done. So you've just done that rotation, 3 seconds, 9 seconds of ride, 3 seconds of clear in 15 seconds. That is why it's advantageous to do a rotation. You now have 15 seconds to do something cool. Imagine yourself on Infernal Shrines and you're doing a rotation between the middle and the bot. What's in between? A Merc Camp. You have fantastic clear. You take a Merc Camp. You now have an advantage over your enemy team, who is just kind of one dude in the lane soaking, getting overwhelmed. You don't have a Merc Camp in between, let's say. You mess with the enemy team. You get in their faces. In fact, it's the tank's job, like Johanna is a great one at this, who can path a little dangerously, go through the bushes, see the team trying to counter your rotate, pop them with a little blind, knocking them off their mounts, slowing down the rotation. A great rotation is a fantastic way to get ahead. Doesn't mean it's always doable, and it won't be doable in all leagues.
No, it's not. And this is referred to a lot as the 4-stack. I really like and prefer referring to this as the 4-man rotation, because I also call it a 4-stack on something like Braxis. You're not really rotating there. 4-man rotation, to me, my brain goes, okay, we're talking about 3-lane maps, and we're talking about rotating between 2 of those lanes that are close.
And ultimately, the one map that I think everybody should do this on 100% is Tomb of the Spider Queen. And we're going to talk a little more about the specifics of that later, but it really highlights the advantage of it and how the tank sets the rhythm. The tank is kind of your sponge. They're one of your safest people to put your gems into. Johanna, Muradin, anybody who can kind of jump away or just kind of walk out of business is a great person to hold on to that bank. If they're in the front, they're collecting those gems while you safely clear in the back, and you begin that rotation back and forth until you build enough of an advantage that you can turn in while the enemy's still a little overwhelmed and pushed out.
Yeah. One last thing I want to talk about with the 4-man rotation before we move on are, keywords like the invisible line, which you and I reference a lot, or the wraparound, which I a lot of times just call the safe path. So
safety path.
You alluded to it already, talking about giving the example of the Johanna that goes out, that pokes into that bush, that pokes across that invisible line, and that what that line is imagine drawing a center line right down the middle of the entire map, and crossing over that is crossing into the enemy's territory, which is fine if you're a tank, if you're a high health hero, if you have a reliable escape mechanic. But for a lot of the times, the safest thing to do is let your actual tank take care of that.
Right. If you're a stealth character, you can cross that line. If you have heavy escape, like Genji, you can cross that line. But just acknowledge that anytime you walk onto the enemy's half of the map, it is an aggressive move. Remember, steal the bacon, if you had that, or what was it, capture the flag. And that kid that was always going, oh, and dancing over the line, be like, oh, you can't get me. Like, no. Don't do that, because they can get you. They can come onto your side and tag you. This isn't that game.
Right. And then there's the wraparound or the safe pathing, and that's just something you and I both frequently refer to as taking the safe path. Like, look at that pathing line on your mini-map when you click to a faraway lane. Make sure you're not taking some bizarre path around a tree or some structure that actually takes you on to the enemy's side of the map.
Right. You don't want to be the first person there. Imagine the enemy has a butcher is a great example. You don't want to be the butcher's target if you're Zagara. So why would you be out in front? Think of Tomb of the Spider Queen. Let's say we all want to go bottom. So we're in the middle lane, and you got that common area. There's bushes there, but everybody has to squeeze through a visible space that the enemy team can see them. It's worth it if you're squishy, if you're even the support with low health, to walk all the way back by your knights, back down around and through that other hole to come out behind your fort.
Yeah. The only time you want to arrive first is if you're the tank.
Or if you totally sweet bait them, but then you used up your divine palm. So it's a pretty good general rule.
Right. Let's talk about rotations with mercs, because mercs were brought up in Stim Sheep's question. So, I mean, the main goal on basically any map with the Merc rotation is to create an advantage during the objective phase. It's the most basic line of thinking with Mercs, is timing them to create confusion and hopefully a reaction when the objective pops.
Right. There's nothing wrong with after 10, really, grabbing a Merc camp and pushing with it. Now you're just trying to create pressure, damage, and using the advantage you already created. But in the early game, because there's such a small window, there's very few times where you're going to be able to get that Merc camp and then push with it. The objective's going to come up. So the whole purpose of that particular move on something like Cursed Hollow is to create the giant camp going in the lane. So when you get to the objective, either giant camp is going and you're getting building damage during that whole fight. Ooh, sweet. Even if we lose, delay. Or someone addresses it. Now we have a 5v4 and we have an advantage.
Yep. It's good either way.
It's really important to note that if you are coming back to this game and you haven't played since the winter patch, there is no longer ammo on the towers. A camp just going by itself has to have some sort of other map presence. Otherwise, it's just not going to do much, particularly when you're looking at things like knights or short range mercs. They're going to get burned down and those buildings will survive. Previously, they'd run out of ammo, they'd be spent, and they could be cleaned up later on easily.
So you're talking about lane coverage.
Right.
So make sure a lane has coverage, meaning make sure it has a wave of minions with it. Just look at it. It's like, will these mercs meet up with my lane minions? If it's going to, especially siege giants, if they're going to walk out like 10, 20 yards ahead of your next minion wave, they're not going to get anything done.
Well, and even that, there was a very large strategy, again, like let's talk about Cursed Hollow, where Sonya would push to the wall, feeding those minions into the wall. The guy sitting behind there is like, oh, sweet XP, how safe. Thank you, Sonya. Nowadays, in the past, he was panicked. You were burning all his ammo. He tried to push it out, but Sonya went and took a Merc camp, and now she comes rolling with the Merc camp, and the towers are exhausted. They do nothing against this Merc camp, and Sonya destroys everything, taking the fort. Nowadays, Sonya leaving is a huge deficit in XP. She needs to stay because that lane will be killed very fast. There is not an advantage built by burning ammo. So give up on the Merc camp if you don't have lane coverage. That's the rule here. It is more important to soak than to get a lane nowadays. If you can pull it off, sweet. If you are so wicked fast that you can do it and make it to the objective and someone's not covering their lane opposing you, okay, but like it's really kind of not worth it unless every lane is covered.
Gotcha. Well, what about 2-lane maps?
So 2-lane maps, there's no 4-man rotation. You think about your Braxis and your Battlefield of Eternity. They are distant. If someone leaves, you get overwhelmed, but they might succeed in their gank. It's always a gamble. There's no real official rotation on these. When we're looking at Merc camps, though, Battlefield of Eternity, you do want to make sure you're building that pressure. Hopefully you're winning your lane and you can take those Impalers, the Goatmen, before that first Immortal. You just want to get them off the map so that if you are winning the Immortal too hard, the team can't go grab them and try to climb back in.
Yeah, and vice versa if you're losing, particularly with a level deficit, that they don't also throw some Goatmen your way.
Exactly. So you got to be aware that camp is down there. If people are missing, like I said, there aren't really rotations. It's either a gank heading top or somebody's working on that Merc camp. But Shamans are the real timing here. You want to take those right as the Immortal spawns.
Yeah. So in your opinion, how well do they break the rule about lane coverage? Because I find that as long as they've got just other minions with them, Shamans are still disgusting.
Yeah, they do well because they regenerate those, their dog beasts in front of them and are able to get some pretty decent damage done. But it's also that pressure, and we're also dealing with human beings, and seeing your towers under attack and your announcer being, our towers are going down, it helps you in that pit when you're battling it out.
Yeah. If you even make indecision, even if they don't react, that's good.
It's important to note here, too, there is delayed camp grabs. There is nothing wrong with, like, let's say we don't need a healer to take a shaman camp. We have that Sonya. She's going to regenerate. She'll tank all the damage. It's baby damage anyway. No big deal. We can leave Deckard in lane to just soak that. That's not trouble. But we took it too early. The objective's not ready. But we soaked the lane, so we're good. We're good boys and girls. You can just sit on it. Or actually, don't sit on it, as it were. Get off the pad.
Sit next to it.
Stay. Yes. Leave someone in attendance, perhaps, if you're worried about an enemy Medivh flying on in and grabbing that up from you.
Yes, yeah. Which again, typically, if the objective is not going off, it's pretty safe to do that. If you're in the scenario you just described, meaning the lane XP is already covered and the objective hasn't popped, you can totally just be bored and sit and wait.
Yeah,
It's okay.
it's perfectly fine. You'll feel some panic naturally because you want to participate. But anybody who's, dying during that moment is already kind of doing your team a disservice. You don't need to go save them.
Right. So, and if the game's that slow, and you're not on comms, you can type. That's like, hey, anyone cool if we just delay this for a minute? So people will hopefully get on the same page. Let's talk about the other 2-lane map right now, Braxis Holdout. I mean,
Yes, by the way, we're only doing official Hero League rotation maps here today.
This would take way too long otherwise.
Yeah, well, and to be very specific about Haunted Mines, and let's not get weird here.
Yeah, I mean, really on Braxis, you want to capture any available camp during the beacon phase. You want to get that pressure. You want to help your control element. The more chaos you can create, the easier it's going to be for you to control that pad. And this is the map, Kyle, where I am the least concerned about the invisible line that we talked about. I see more stolen camps here than any other map.
It's oppressive, and I feel like it has to do with the kind of circular nature of the map as both kind of angle inward. When you get rid of the forts, that invisible line just shifts far past the boss onto the enemy side, and they really get some serious map control. A little better with our recent update, but still perhaps a concern, just in base map layout. This is not like when we talk about shaman camps, particularly when we're talking about like Cursed Hollow and that giants in the bottom on something like Sky Temple. Like, those are really tried and true traditions at this point. If you are able to spare someone who can actually take that Merc camp on Braxis Holdout, power to your team. You drafted kind of interestingly even. You got ahead by that. Your top lane's doing solid. It doesn't need a visit. You can spare somebody, which is sometimes a little rare. Your core comp is very strong. Something like maybe let's do the ETC, Gul'dan, and Ariel, let's say. Really just nothing bad's going to happen to that as long as it plays safe, and it'll have more than enough pressure to keep their lane pushed out. They can spare their Illidan. Why'd you run an Illidan on Braxis? Because you're crazy. But you know what? It's going to be worth it now because you're going to grab that camp and create an advantage.
Yeah. But by the way, do you think the stealing camps on Braxis is a win more move? I kind of think it is.
Yeah, there's really no reason not to a lot of the times. They're really locked out. Anchoring in those bushes is very easy. They're very close by, so oftentimes even the Garrosh can kind of, throw a little slam that way and help out while he's standing in that bush too.
Yeah. That being said, I had a game that threw so hard the other day because of this. So
they really won that camp.
Yeah, it's win more. We were ahead. We had control of the map. We had taken down a keep. All 5 of the enemies were up, and they're like, let's take this camp. And I'm like, they're right there. Why are we doing this? And wipe loss.
And if we're talking in hard truths, 100%, you should always send up a gank bush first. If you really want that camp and people are not dead, a gank bush is the superior way. And that's everybody loading the bush, and then, Cassie comes out and like, I wonder what's in here, and explodes because you're so awesome. That is the better way to do it. Then take the camp afterwards. You've created yet another advantage.
Yep, 100%. This is, I think, the safest map in the game to steal camps on, but still, it's win more, don't lose a hero because of it.
And to that point too, I know there's a lot of depends here, a lot of backpedaling, but there's nothing wrong with trying to steal an enemy camp if you're 3 levels down. You're just trying to make something happen. We just said never solo boss because you're after the map too long. If you're 3 levels down, you're just trying to make something happen, trying to claw back in that game. That's a worthy risk.
Yeah. Risk take when you're losing, not when you're winning.
Yeah. So let's get to the maps that actually have the 3 lanes, but we don't rotate on them because those lanes are too far apart.
Yeah, your Cursed Hollows, Sky Temple, and Alterac. So let's start with Cursed Hollow. I mean, really, you want to get those giants when that first tribute is spawning.
This is pretty easy to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's giants. Anyone can take no damage from them if you're fighting them, right?
And in general, you usually have someone who can do a Merc camp on these 3 maps because the lanes are so separate that people have drafted those solo laners, and many of them can take a camp.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Give them something to think about during that first tribute, and then try and get the knights in between the first and second.
Ideally, getting people mobilized for the knights can be a bit difficult. Not everybody can solo those. Sometimes you have to send the healer with it, which isn't a bad thing to spare because you should be building that advantage anyway. So get the healer out, safety soak the lanes, but always, always make sure on these 3 lane maps that you are soaking.
Oh, yeah. Big time. It's very, very important. Sky Temple. You want to capture the giants and knights before the first temple phase.
Yep, those first 2 temples are in the top. So get those giants in the bottom going. So just like Cursed Hollow, you can pull people away. The knights here is something that you'll see a lot in HGC, and it's something that we don't do at home very much at all. They even play this game where if the enemy takes their knights, they will delay taking their own knights because they want the enemy knights to push onto their half of the map so they can clear them easier, kill them off, and then push with their own knights. Kind of like we do with the Garden Terror. Oh, no, delay. Oh, okay, now you take yours and mine will last longer than you. Okay.
That is the closest thing to the kid jumping back and forth over the line.
Right. We don't take knights at home, really, at all on Sky Temple. And we should be thinking about that. That's a great way to make another advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you can really get your timing down, especially if you kind of get into this, like, 2-buddy Merc system where you have one person in each lane still soaking and you've got 2 people kind of taking care of Mercs, why not?
Yeah, no reason not to.
Get your accountability buddy. And then Alterac. What are we doing in Alterac? Do we have a Merc strategy for Alterac?
We try to grab the gnolls during the objective. And so they push the middle, but because of the way the mud pit's laid out, because of the way the map is pretty big, the middle lane is okay to pump a Merc into and see if we can get something done in there.
All right. Let's get specific about 3-lane maps that we do rotate on. Shrines, Spider Queen, Volskaya.
Pretty easy to think about when you think about why we rotate those lanes. On Infernal Shrines, it's mid and bottom because you can safely path through those areas without ever even seeing the enemy team. Tomb of the Spider Queen, top mid. Again, look at the bottom there. You got to expose yourselves. You got to see each other. Volskaya, it's dangerous. There's conveyor belts and bushes and all sorts of crazy stuff that can happen, but we can safely move from the top to the mid.
Yeah, it's the most straightforward.
When we're on Infernal Shrines, Impalers are good to take when you're doing that rotation. Go and grab them when you have that advantage.
Yeah, they're right there. They're so conveniently located. They're the fast food of mercenaries.
It's true. And when you're doing the rotation we talked about earlier, you will have the spare time to just knock these out. You can even, if the objective's right there in that mid-bottom area, you're still pretty safe to get it done in a lot of times. This is something that, because the way the objective works, we draft a lot of clear on Infernal Shrines. Don't overvalue these. They don't need to come at the perfect time of the objective, but it's a great thing to do with your bonus 15 seconds.
Yeah. And we already talked about Tomb of the Spider Queen. Volskaya Foundry. I mean, the turret camp in the bottom, you should just be capturing that basically nonstop from the second it spawns.
It doesn't create a Merc camp. There's no reason not to take it. It sits on the hero. Of course, remember to use it and don't drop it for the enemy team's use. But you control when this thing is unleashed.
Are there any hard, fast rules for support camp? Because I've always had it filed away in my brain as it just depends. Is it safe to take? Take it. Is it not safe to take? Keep an eye on it.
Right. You are entering that danger territory, sort of a Bermuda Triangle in between the lanes. If you have the gun, you have an advantage over the enemy team because they don't have a gun. So you're sitting on, 5.2 hero versus 5.
What if you both have the gun? Because that's a very common scenario to find yourselves in.
Then you probably know if you're winning, if you're equal levels, and if your team's been rocking it early on. But I mean, for the most part, this is something that as you hit 10, everyone's starting to group up, and you'll do rather easily. It's a very slow camp if you're not using at least 3 people.
All right. And then let's talk about the maps where you can rotate, but it's scary.
Yeah. You don't often do it.
Yeah.
And
so
you have to be very tight.
the first one is Dragonshire, and my brain immediately goes to, but Kyle, I watched Tempo Storm rotate like gods on this map.
They do. And note their pathing. They barely show each other themselves through those bushes in that true Bermuda Triangle. They jump from one bush to another and really stick to their side of the map.
And if their opposing team doesn't respect this and someone does get caught out, they typically die to Tempo Storm in that triangle.
Yeah. Very fast reaction times there when a tank is able to get a snag, when, again, using an older school hero, but a great example when Zul's able to get a bone prison on someone and the whole team can go on it. Deckard Cain gets an engage there. It's going to be responded on fast. But it's just a little dangerous, and it's not quite worth forcing your team, particularly if they're not into it.
Yeah, I've never really tried to make a rotation happen on Dragonshire in a pickup game.
The only real timing you can think about here is as the dragon dies, he's going to be dead for a set amount of time. About 45 seconds, or basically when your heroic you used during the dragon push comes off cooldown, you can take your merc camps across the map so that you can start building that pressure so the lanes are a busy place. And this is a really good strategy. Getting those ogres firing in your bottom lane and fighting inside them, helping that collapse happening on your enemy team, is a great way to have a huge advantage in that fight.
Well, it ties back into lane coverage. If you're not rotating on Dragonshire, what are you doing? You're covering the lanes.
Exactly.
So you have people in every lane to empower all of the mercs that you just took.
Dragonshire is such an odd one because we often, a lot of, leagues and even mine, we just leave mid unsoaked because we get so busy with the objectives. And I think that's just fun. I think that's why we do it. And maybe it even bears, it's worth saying, this can be something that stops you from climbing. This may be your breaking point, and that's okay. It's kind of, I remember being intensely frustrated and bored by the ideas of rotations. The idea that I don't get to be an individual. I don't get to man my lane and be rocking and build my rapport with the enemy guy. I have to load up into this traveling circus that just looks for kills. It can be a little anti-fun.
Yeah, but that's where the adaptation comes in. If you're able to read the situation and adapt to it.
And the real fun comes when you've built that advantage and it's past 10 and we're all together anyway and you're rocking the map, or the enemy team has set their rotation, you're competing now. So this has become more fun over time. But I remember this initial strategy and listened to all this jibber jabber about timings and camps. Just like, I want to be a free soul. I just want to take merc camps when I want. I just want to be in my lane as long as I want. I want a 1v1.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up with Towers of Doom. It's one we talk about all the time. Anytime Towers of Doom comes up, we always harp on the importance of the sappers in the bottom lane. That's still the case here. But you do want to try your best to rotate between middle and bot.
Right. It's going to be dangerous because you'll both see each other kind of walking alongside. In fact, there's plenty of times where you're just waving at the enemy team as you're passing by, knowing they're slightly at a distance of your spells, but at any point.
Good game. Good game. It's not over yet, but good game. Good game.
Okay. Good to see you. Good to see you. Controlling that bottom means you control both the sappers ultimately, meaning that they have to respond to exclusively to the bottom, and then there's those 2 towers that pop in the top. It is a very powerful strategy, and if you can pull off a rotation, it means you actually control that area.
Yep. And that's really it. I mean, honestly, on towers, it feels like there's just a lot of importance on your top laner to excel.
As with most solo lanes, but yeah, particularly because it's so isolated up there. We're still always going to see, despite their win rates, things like Falstad and Dahaka getting picked up on Towers of Doom because they're able to stick it out. Even Brightwing can hold her own up there, though she will probably lose the Merc camp to something like a Malthael.
Yeah. Yep. But that's it. There you are. There's your general rules, Stim Sheep, for rotating across the Hero League maps currently in rotation.
This is really important information to understand why it's happening around you, to know the importance of it. As I said, if this just isn't your cup of tea, it's okay to be, pleased with silver. I don't think you have to know this, but this is a really powerful way to level up, and I've had to accept it, and I found a lot of fun in it over time.
Yep. And I don't think if you don't have your rotations on lockdown that you're guaranteed to stay in silver.
No. I mean, certainly there's lots of personal performance too that can just excel you into higher leagues.
Yeah. Well, let's take an email or two before we wrap it up.
Darkness stopped calling.
Does anyone else hear that buzzing?
Hold on. Darkness just texted me.
itncast@gmail.com is the place you can send your emails, even though we already took one in strategy. I'm leaving for a little while, Kyle, and I just want to leave with a smile on my face, so I have included just a really nice email from Orange Osiris. There's no question here. Orange Osiris just wanted to shout out to, in his words, how quote, amazing the A-Move community is. Orange Osiris wrote, I am a longtime listener and have been playing Heroes very casually over the past few years, but I decided to try the old /join A-Move TV in-game, and damn, best thing I have ever done in the game. Instantly met a load of awesome people who convinced me to give Team League a go, and I managed to get my placements done before the July cutoff. Told them I had never played at that level before, and everyone was awesome, giving me advice and tips. Granted, I placed Bronze 4, but we got to start somewhere, and I am now playing Sonya, and I'm loving it. I have learned so much in just the past few days playing with everyone and feel like I'm actually quite good with her now. Thanks for the awesome podcast and community. Over and out. Orange Osiris.
That's fantastic. And in fact, I didn't know there was a quick match bug, of which Reddit was very upset about, because I 5-stack with the A-Move community every time I play quick match.
Yeah, it's a great way, man. It's a great way. So
I will say it's quick match. If you're the last person to join, no one's showing support. You don't have to support, bro. We can chill. We can all be assassins. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you haven't joined or you're not aware of custom chat channels in Heroes of the Storm, all commands start with a /. So you /join spacebar A-Move TV, all one word, and you'll join the A-Move TV channel. A lot of great people in there, always looking for games. I figured I'd just make a theme out of the names I selected out of the inbox today, and I took an email from someone named Orange Lion, who says, hey guys, love the show, and I know Garrett, you love your Zagara and would love to hear more insight on her latest rework, please. In particular, I would love to hear why you choose to take certain talents over others or situations in which certain talents shine. The latest HOTS logs shows that even though there is a great sense of the most popular picks at each level, all the available talents seem to provide similar win percentages, the exception being Mutalisk at 16. Personally, I like Mutalisk, but have had much more success taking Corrosive Saliva because I attach the Hunter Killer to the target opposing player. This talent, along with Hydralisk Transformation, seem to really synergize and return more HP per attack. Please feel free to express talents that you feel fit your playstyle, ones you feel are valid against certain heroes, or just ones you wish would get more play from the masses. Thank you for everything you do for the community. Oh, I would love to take a break from Into the Nexus by exiting on Zagara chat. Yeah, dude. I've never really done this before, so I just, once I saw this email and I knew it was thrown in here, I opened up Zagara's talents and have just ordered them in order of my preference, generally speaking. So at level 1, Infest, it's my favorite. It's my overall favorite. Most of the time, if I'm taking Zagara, I am taking Zagara because I want to win lanes, and Infest helps me win lanes.
It's encouraging. It looks cool, too.
Yeah, I really like it. However, going down the list, Volatile Acid gets my second favorite pick at level 1. It's just so much fun for team fighting, and I know it only increases damage against non-heroes, but that 50% increased range is good no matter how you use them banelings. Suddenly you get the backline like a mage on Zagara, and I love it.
It's a great way, too, to just get some building damage in and frustrate that enemy who might be a physical presence like Sonya in lane. But, you're getting the buildings. You're winning.
Yeah, exactly. So I like it for team fighting, but it also helps me win the lane. Whilst it helps you stay safer while still getting damage in. And then corpse feeders, it's at the bottom only because something has to be. I like corpse feeders quite a bit. It's my go-to if I know my job is murking, because roaches just make murking so easy.
Yeah, it's a good talent on Blackheart's Bay, for sure. Good way to keep your health up.
Yep. Level 4, I pretty much exclusively pick Envenom Spines. Really, almost never take anything else. I know there's a big argument for serrated spines, but I love hitting 4 and just instantly having a massive uptick in my auto attack damage.
Interesting. I see nothing but Medusa Blades.
I hate that talent and wish it would be removed from the game.
Why? You get split attacks, It's
Zagara, you don't need more lane damage.
I guess. I guess that's true. I mean, I've been hearing a lot about, particularly from Bo, the climbing power of something like stacking on enemy heroes with that serrated spines. People don't expect Zagara to kind of creep up in damage. I find it a little lackluster because it is a 0.3 per auto attack.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, your creep actually increases your range by 20%. So maybe the chance of getting an attack on an enemy player is pretty decent.
Yeah. This is probably, I would assume, is my most controversial opinion, is level 4. I like Envenom Spines. I think Medusa Blades is the biggest crutch talent on Zagara.
I think there's a lot of people that will die on that line, but I'm glad you're going for the drama.
I think it's if Medusa Blades works for you, go for it. I feel like I have no issues whatsoever clearing without it, and I would rather murder people better.
Sure.
Level 7, honestly, I love me some Bile Drop here. The instant 50% damage increase to your drops damage. Love it. Give it to me, please. However, I really like Viscous Acid. I take this a lot. It's very close in pick rate to Bile Drop for me. But the reason I take it if I notice that my team is having issues completing kills.
Got to catch up, and 20% slow on something you can spam like that is pretty good. I am atrocious at stacking my Bile Drop. I am just disappointed in me anytime I take that thing.
It depends on the enemy's composition, and that's where Baneling Massacre comes in. It is probably the one I take the least at 7. But 2 more charging of Banelings is great. Synergizes wonderfully with Volatile Acid if you go with that, because it just all of a sudden your Banelings are awesome. And this is great if the opposing team, they're too squirrely for Bile Drop, but you also don't think you're going to get anything from the slow.
I think if this talent in particular got the Abathur Mind treatment, where it also decreased the cooldown even slightly, it'd be a fine pick.
Yeah. At 13, Hydra Transfusion is very tied with me for protective coating. It just kind of comes down to, are my tumors dying? If the answer is yes, then I go Transfusion. And then Spell Shield is just situational. Are you taking a lot of spell damage? Take Spell Shield.
I would like to not die to Chromie today, please.
Yeah, exactly. Also, your tumors are probably dying if there's a Chromie.
Yeah, there's a lot of splash damage and whatnot.
Yeah. And then I'm skipping heroics. Really, the only time I discuss heroics is level 20. But I almost exclusively go Nidus Network still. 16, Mutalisk. It's really good. And if you go Nidus, you just pop Mutalisk out constantly. It's wonderful. There's a reason it's the most oppressively overweighted pick at any talent level for Zagara.
Well, and and lasts for 30 seconds. You can load those up on the little walls that are left behind. There's just a lot of reasons to use it. I find if I go anything else, I am attaching all my Hydras to tanks because that's what's in range of me, which isn't what I want, but I'm not going to pull some sweet flank to get a Hydra on Chromie. It's dangerous out there.
Yeah, you're probably stepping off creep for that. Ugh, I don't like that. The creep is my blanket, and I like being cozy on Zagara.
But I mean, we've got this upgraded corrosive saliva, 2.5 maximum health. The tank's the easiest thing to put a Hydra on. I feel like I'm doing a disservice because I shouldn't do my spell. It's physical damage out of the Hydra, but it's a spell. It costs me stuff. I don't want to put that into an enemy tank.
Yeah, I don't know. Orange Lion, you have piqued my interest with corrosive saliva because I have never given this talent the time of day. I don't really know of a reason to take this, but clearly it's working for you. And I would always say, if it's working, don't do something differently just because someone told you to. If you're winning, then something's working. What I think is the underrated talent at 16 is Brute Expansion. Now, I pretty much only take it when I go Maw, because if I go Maw, I'm not taking Nidus. I don't have a way to fill my mana. So while I can Hydralisk more often, which is great, and probably the main reason you should be taking Brute Expansion, the mana cost reduction helps a lot since you didn't take Nidus.
Yeah, what is the cooldown reduction now when you've got Nidus on you?
I don't actually know off the top of my head.
I'm curious about, and that'd be a big old pile of math. That can't exactly be done in the head, but I'm wondering where the breaking point is. Obviously, Brute Expansion, a good way to make up for your Devouring Maw talent pick. The Bile drop on top of heroes that are going to be in one centralized area is a good way to get that stacked.
Yeah. Thinking of Corrosive Saliva as like an anti-tank pick makes a lot of sense. It's just that Mutalisk is so damn good.
Yeah, and it sticks around, which means if it does go on a tank, it's doing splash damage. It's got a lot going for it.
Yeah, it's so hard to make an argument not for Mutalisk, but and then level 20, it's just heroic dependent. If I went Nidus, which I usually do, I'm going Endless Creep. Fury of the Storm, I pretty much only take if I'm losing really hard, and I think there's a way we can climb back into it.
Right, like maybe a pick if you're saying like, man, okay, everybody but Zagara is gonna stay in the base. She has to all keeps are gone. Zagara's got to man it all by herself. We're gonna go try to get some done. Zagara, join us later if you can. We're gonna go for the keep. But just this thing's ancient. This talent is old.
Yes, it is. It's just again, I mean,
does Sylvana still have this? Or did she lose it in her rework? Like, I mean, all right, so Fury of the...
Stop asking me questions about talents I never take and don't remember if they're on certain heroes.
I know, and rightfully so. And I think they've all got unique names, too. Doesn't Nazebo have this thing still? Yeah, he does. Fury of the Storm. It's such a weird one. And we've moved so far away from specialists being specialists as we used to know them. That thing's got to go.
Yeah, there's not much of a reason to take it. I take and then Tyrant Maw, I take if I took Maw and we're winning. So almost always Endless Creep because almost always Nidus.
Kerrigan lost her Zerglings because Braxis came out. She used to spawn some when she was, I think, doing Impaling Blades in the past. I would love for Zagara to get something more themed here. Every time you clear, you get an Infested Terran or something.
Oh.
Change this damage into something Zergy. Oh,
yeah.
She shoots lightning. Like, it just... And Nazebo's got Ice Block when he could be Spiriting. Yeah, I know. Some of this is, like, readability. You see Jaina in an Ice Block, Malfurion in an Ice Block, Nazebo in an Ice Block. Like, your brain goes, that's an Ice Block. And if Nazebo instead there was a Spirit above him going, ooh, and, like, shaking like it does in Diablo 3, we might all be confused.
Lothrian in the chat room says, rename it Fury of the Swarm.
Yeah.
Done. Problem solved. Yeah. We fixed it. We fixed Fury of the Storm, everybody. Well, all right. Well, there's my rundown.
It's a good rundown.
Yeah.
And lots of Zagara play right now. And she's coming on back. She's recovering.
Yep. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, well, that's going to bring us to the end of episode 226 of Into the Nexus. Thank you all for tuning in. Keep those emails coming, itncast@gmail.com. Kyle, you'll be back next week holding down the fort without me.
I will.
Yeah, so keep writing in. The show's not going to stop just because I'm out of here. Thank you again to our patrons supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN. We very, very much appreciate the support. Some of our newer patrons, thank you to Justin N., Daryl D., and Cameron N. If you like this show, if you like what we're doing, you want to give something back, check out patreon.com/ITN. No matter how much you give, everything adds up. It all helps. And we have broken 400 patrons again. So thank you very much, everybody.
Awesome.
Onwards to 500. Huge thanks to our producers, Declan H. and Cheesy Bob. Thank you very much for the support, you two. You can get Into the Nexus t-shirts at shirts.amove.tv. We also have custom etched glassware available at etched.amove.tv. Typically, we're live Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/amovetv. Don't let today fool you. And you can follow the show on Twitter at ITNcast. Kyle, before we go, where can everybody find everything else that you're doing?
You can find me right on this channel today. In fact, we were broadcasting live at twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson because we were on the launcher. So thank you to the community team who hosts us on the launcher today. Fantastic seeing new faces in the chat room. I'll be continuing to play after this, so stick around.
Yeah, don't go anywhere if you're watching live. Hang out with Kyle and learn some heroes. I can be followed on Twitter at Garrett Art. All of the podcasts that I do can be found at amove.tv. Go and check that out. And I'm going to be traveling. I'll be in the Florida Keys this week. So if you want to see pictures of wild chickens, follow me on Instagram. GARE_W is where you can find me on there. Or is it GW?
They, they're pretty respectful, those chickens. I was down there earlier this year.
I'm sorry, everybody. I told you the wrong one. It's Gare_GW. GARE_GW. GW. So follow me on there because that's going to be pretty much the only place I'm going to be posting because I ain't going on Twitter for the next week and a half, and it's going to be wonderful.
That's the right way to work it.
Aw, yeah. Dying to fire Twitter and Facebook. Dying to fire.
It takes a lot of effort, and like we talked about last week, you got to read the primary sources. And when you see, the Alliance, screw them, you got to, okay, hang on. Okay, let me read a bit. Okay, all right. Now I know what's going on. Okay, yes, yeah, okay.
There it is. Shaw was a Dreadlord, but they're kind of conveniently forgetting that every single time we bring up Broken Shore. Okay. Yep, good to know. Good to know. Whatever the case is, that's where you can follow me. Kyle, good luck next week. Thank you for holding down the fort while I'm out. Very much appreciate it. And that's going to do it. Thank you for tuning in for episode 226. Kyle, we'll see you next week. Until then, good luck and have fun.
Take care.
I love how you just get on whatever dumbass thing I'm doing with my voice without any... It's wonderful. Thank you, sir.
I mean, I wish you had and then we do the head throw as we go back because you're off to vacation.
Yeah, bad After Effects, man. That's what the show needs more of.
Well, that was great. Thank you for squeezing that in early.
Yeah, man. So, for Kyle's stream, don't go anywhere. We're going to just blip the stream, and Kyle's going to wrest control of it back from me.
Correct.
Are you ready?
I am. Well, let's give it a moment.
Sure.
Begin the setup. Kristen's here.
Make it so.
Make it so.
Oh, the green screen is back.
Is expanding.
Just sit there like a captain. Don't help.
Just fabulous.
Got a long road trip today. I'm actually looking forward to it.
Nice. Cool. All right, let's kill it.
All right. I'm bringing the stream down.
You're out. You're out. Have a great vacation, man.
Have a great vacation.
I'm sticking around for a second to post the show. So.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, I will go off video because otherwise my streaming program will be very angry.
Well, I can. Do you want to take the stream over? I can drop it right now if you're ready.
Right. But I'm going to disappear my video because I got to put it in the
it's fine.
Streamlabs.
It's irrelevant. All right, stream going down.